to the Prairie Fibre Witch podcast. I'm Sarah, coming to you from Edmonton, Alberta on the Canadian prairies. And I didn't think I was gonna, but I've been vlogmasing. It seems like a lot of people are doing Vlogmas this year, and that's including me. I just was watching other people's, and then suddenly was filming things, and so suddenly there was enough footage to make a video, so I've been doing that. I hope you've enjoyed it. If vlogs are your thing. If not, I totally understand you skipping them. Some people just want the knitting. And I just wanted to say the Knit Your Darlings Cal is still going on. I've been trying to sort of follow the hashtag and post what I've been seeing there, but I think hashtags are still kind of being hidden due to the US election for some reason, which is a little funny. My Instagram and Ravelry details are in the description box, along with all my show notes, in case you want to follow me on other social medias other than YouTube. And yeah, so the Knit Your Darlings Cal is going until the end of the year, and Rhiannon has put together a really nice prize package for that. So if you have been hoarding a special skein of yarn, we encourage you to use it. And it's not limited to single skein projects, of course, but single skein projects are also encouraged. So yeah, I sort of fear-mongered last time that I was not able to knit at all. I think a combination of the really big Slipstravaganza project plus trying to hold it in an awkward position is what stressed out my right wrist. So taking a break was well deserved. I got the Knitting Comfortably book out of the library, which is a knitting ergonomics book, and started reading it. Here, let me go get it. The Knitting Comfortably book, The Ergonomics of Hand Knitting by Carson Demers. And I've been reading through it. I read through it as soon as I got it, about halfway through, to start to figure out what I needed to change with how I was knitting. Most of the suggestions I have taken to heart, and have modified how I've been knitting, and how I've been sitting in my spot on the couch in the evenings, and it has made a big difference for me. I'm still a little stiffness now and again, but I'm just trying not to push it too hard. And yeah, one of the big things that I was doing, which I know that I was doing with the Slipstravaganza project, was I was trying to hold my project really high up while I was knitting, so then the whole weight of the project is pulling on your hands, and I think that's what really stressed out my wrist. Yeah, he goes into the ergonomics of knitting, but also the ergonomics of what a lot of us do in our day jobs, or in most of our lives, which is sit in front of a computer and type on a keyboard, and that impacts on your ability to have energy to knit. So yeah, I got it out of the library, and I would recommend, if you're having any kind of knitting pain, that you check it out. So that's a little book thing right up front, but that really helps me be able to get back to knitting, so I thought I'd talk about that right away. So one of the things that, the one thing that I have finished since last time, I started and finished it in the past couple weeks, is a pair of socks for my uncle. My uncle has Parkinson's disease, and so has been unable to work for many years, and he has very large feet and is unable to find socks that fit him very well. So I think it was last year or a year and a half ago, he had asked me if I would be willing to make him some socks, and I said yes, as long as they're not boring white sport socks, and he was like, sure, do whatever, as long as it's not like green or black. So the first pair of socks that I knit for him happened to be green, but he's worn them anyway, and they're at a state where they need to be repaired. So I thought it was, so I had a couple requests in the past month or so for him to get some more socks. So this is one of those pairs. Because the size of his feet is a size 13 triple E width, and so for him I need to use more than 100 grams of yarn for a pair of socks. So rather than buying like multiple pattern skeins and only using a part of it, I've devised sort of a design for him where I buy 100-gram skein, which I use for the body of the sock, and then I use a contrasting color for the heels, toes, and cuffs. And this also, I don't bother trying to match the socks, although these ones are like pretty close, like they're about, you know, an inch off the repeat. I don't bother to match the socks. I did have a little bit left over, but it's just about getting socks for him that he can wear. It's not about, he's not going anywhere where he needs to be particularly fashionable, although I think these are pretty cool socks. So, yeah, so this is a pair of socks for him. The yarn for this is Regia. I also use like sort of mass-produced sock yarns for his socks, because although I've told him like don't throw them in the dryer, I don't want to spend a lot of money on sock materials, especially because I have to get like 120 grams for a pair for him. So I just don't want to risk like him getting a pair of indie dyed sock yarn socks and then they get felted and then he can't wear them. That's sort of a waste of time. So I've been exploring like the mass-produced Arne and Carlos designs, which are really fun. I think I've got lined up for him enough yarn for another 5 pairs of socks beyond what I've got cast on so far. And yeah, it gives me a chance to explore some of the new colors that they're doing, which are more interesting. Like, I always love the opal colorways that they come up with, and yeah, it gives me a reason to have some of those. So, and these I knit magic loop on a 2.25 millimeter or a US 1.5, and yeah, these are a pair of socks for my uncle. And I immediately, and it's all I finished in the past little while, because of this demand for, the sort of urgent demand for new socks, I immediately cast on for another pair of socks for him. This is out of some Patons Croix that I had just bought this gray marl Paton Croix socks in the colorway gray marl. I had bought it just because I thought it was a nice color. It would make some nice socks, and I really love the marled effect on these socks. And I just like randomly bought at Michael's one time this random sort of gray-brown color, which is called flax. And so that's what I'm using for the heels, toes, and cuffs, and I think it makes for a really nice sock. And yeah, so for him, I do 72 stitches. This is more of a sport weight. I think and I know I've changed my gauge for socks, but for his socks, I don't want to mess with the width too much. So I've been knitting them sort of at my older gauge for socks on 2.25 millimeters. These ones I'm actually knitting on 2.5s, or a US 1.5, and the other ones, like, I might go down to a 2 on them, but I think if I do that, then I should increase the stitch count to 80 stitches. Anyway, 72 stitches, heel flap and gusset, and then it'll be, you know, a long foot. So I think I'm just about done the gusset decreases on this one. And yeah, again, magic loop. And these are the Lika fixed circulars, which I really liked, and so I got a few of them. So yeah, so that's a couple pairs of socks for my uncle. And I think when I'm done these, I'll give them to him and then try and, work through the yarn that I have earmarked for him in the next little while. Because, yeah, he wears them out. I have asked that I get the other pairs of socks back so that I can try and mend them for him. Because, yeah, a person needs more than 2 pairs of socks, especially if they're the only socks that fit you. Other things that I have worked on in the past little while, I mean, I've made progress on this sweater, the Valldal damekofte by Rauma Designs. And I'm at the point, I think this is the center front, I'm at the point where I have split for the sleeves. Well, split for the sleeves. I've added steeks for the sleeves. In the pattern, it tells you to just knit until you do the neck decreases, and then you just cut the arms where they should go. But I actually went and introduced some steek stitches. I figured out where the arms should be, because I know how big I want the arms to be, and I think the pattern just has you knit the sleeves, and then you just sort of sew them in place. But I think I'll actually work them top down. I'll pick up stitches and then knit them down. And I guess I'll just have to reverse the chart for that. But it's sort of a geometric chart anyway, so I don't think it's just reversing the order of how you're knitting things. It probably wouldn't matter anyway, actually. So I have put on pause because of the request for socks for my uncle, and also in favor of another project, which is using Advent minis. I did buy myself an Advent calendar this year, and so the thought of having like 24 mini skeins without having a project to do with them, it's just feeling like a lot of yarn. So I have figured out I have started a project with those mini skeins, which I figured out like just at the end of November, in the last few days before starting the calendar. So this is coming along well. I had started this project. I wasn't sure what I had for yardage, so I left the ribbing off the bottom. So I just did a provisional cast on, and I'm starting at the body. So after I finish the body, I will go back. I think, but after I finish the body and the sleeves, then I'll figure out how much yarn I need, or where I'm at with the yarn, whether I can do the ribbing in the same color or in the same sheepy gray, or if I have to go for a different one. I do have a couple of different grays of the Briggs & Little that I'm using. So this project calls for a sport weight yarn. I'm using Briggs & Little Sport in this sheepy gray color, which I'm getting low on my skein here, and I think it's just called sheep's gray. And then the other color is Jamieson's of Shetland DK in I can't remember the number, it'll be in the show notes, I think it's just called Fuschia. And this is a color that I have had on hand for a while in my stash. I had intended it for a design project, which never happened, so here we are. And it's coming out nicely. Briggs & Little Sport is one of my favorite yarns, and part of what I like about it is it's Canadian-produced yarn, and it's not expensive, and they have some really great sheepy colors. And this I am knitting on, oh yeah, these are my needles that have worn off the actual number on them. Can I read anything on these? I don't think so. On a 3.75 millimeter needle, which I don't know offhand. I think, is that a US 5? I'm not sure. Yeah, so that's coming along. I'll get back to it. I do want to finish this sweater because I want to start another one that's similar to it in some other yarn that I got, but I just want to knit all the colorwork sweaters, but I have some obligation knitting that I have to do, including the socks for my uncle. So that comes first. Another thing that I've been sort of slowly working on, I mean, I think I put like an entire repeat worth, knit an entire repeat worth on this just yesterday when I was on a Zoom call with my friends. And this is some self-striping yarn from Tiny Human Knits. This is her, I think it's Very Vintage Christmas colorway, which is like a 12 striper. It kind of reminds me of the Hudson Bay stripes, but it's not exactly the same. So it does give me those vibes though. And so what I've been doing for this, I just decided when I got the yarn to cast on for a tube, and the plan is to knit a complete tube with, I put a cuff on this end, I'll put a cuff on the other end. Yes, that will flip the stripe sequence, but I don't mind that. And then I'll split the tube in two and do toes on both on the cut end, and then I'll cut in for afterthought heels for both socks. So that's coming along. This is how much I have left. So probably still like at least another repeat, and then it might be time to start the ribbing. So yeah, it's what I'm calling sock tube construction, because it's what a lot of people who have circular sock machines, how they knit socks. You know, cranking a whole tube and then dividing it up and doing afterthought everything. So it's similar to that idea. I do not have a circular sock machine. I don't know if I'll ever get one. And because for me, the fun part is just, you know, knitting a big tube. That's actually really fun. And these I am knitting on, I think 1.75 millimeter needles or a US 00. I think with this yarn, I would probably go up to a 2 millimeter next time. Oh, and I have a contrasting color that I'm going to use for the heels and toes, which is just a sort of taupey. It sort of matches the taupe, this kind of brown. It's similar to that, which is similar to what the dyer had in her pictures of the sample sock for this. And I actually ended up buying 2 skeins of this by accident, and this other skein I'm going to knit some socks for my mom, and she's requested green heels and toes, so I have to find a mini or something that's that color. I'm sure I have something in my stash. And then lastly, the last project that I've been working on, which is my Advent project that I sort of started working on at the end of November, I think is what I'm calling my Advent Mini Star Blanket. Kate Davies recently came out with a pattern called Sterrie, which is the inspiration for this project. I am not directly using her pattern. I have not bought it or downloaded it. I based what I'm doing on the picture, solely on the picture, and my understanding of how basically how, you know, knit face cloths are knit. There is a pattern called the Come Together blanket, which is a free pattern on Ravelry for a quilt, for like a knitted quilt block that is basically makes this half square triangle unit, and I use that as my basis, but it's a very light recipe. Oh, excuse me. It's a very light recipe. It's not heavily like a very heavy instruction. So I started with that, and what I have started doing is, instead of knitting 2 squares and then sewing them together, I'm knitting this flying geese unit, which gives you like basically 2 half square triangles connected down the center. I might write up the instructions on what I did to do that flying geese unit at some point. I don't know if anybody's interested in that. So basically, 4 of these flying geese units will give you all the points for the stars. And then I pick up and knit off of the edges, like off of either edge here, right? And then I'll knit the little white square. And then off the bottom square here, I will pick up stitches to knit the middle. Kate Davies, in her design, she has a 4 square block in the middle, and everything's knit on the diagonal, which I didn't really care for. I kind of like that the stitches go in every which direction on this block. And I originally thought I was gonna do like a solid star where like everything is in one color, but the original little leftovers that I was working with weren't large enough to do an entire star, so that's where I started doing these more scrappy ones where the star points are one color and the center is a different color. And it's turned out that I really like how that looks. So I think I'm planning to follow through and have like contrasting colors for the center of each star. So I'll just show you, I've got 4 blocks so far. Cover myself in these knitted quilt squares. And then here's another one. So you might recognize the points from all of these stars are my contrasting colors that I used in my Slipstravaganza shawl. And then this is the first square that uses my Advent mini skeins. And then some of these are just with a washed white Briggs & Little Sport, which I happen to have an extra skein of kicking around my stash for the background color, or I have some light sheepy Rauma phenol garn or phenol PT2 that I had bought to audition for a project, but I didn't end up using it for that, so they're just random skeins also. So I've introduced these into this project as well. So there's like, these are the new heathered colors that I'm going to use for the center parts of the square. Like this blue is what's in the middle of this block. And then I have some other sheepy Briggs & Little. So this is a dark gray that I had. I have this other sort of medium gray. And then I have this other fingering weight sock yarn that I had bought for a different like stranded knitting project as a contrast with I think with a tuku wool color or something that I used for a pair of socks a couple years ago. And it's a non-superwash. It doesn't have any plans for it, so I thought I'd introduce it into this project too. So it's kind of like Advent minis and leftovers. So here's my big pile of yarn that's been sitting on the couch next to me. And then my mom was laughing at me. Where are you taking all of that, when I was bringing it downstairs so that I could show you guys on the podcast? Where are you going with that? Mom, I'm gonna podcast. OMG. Anyway, so I'll have to take this all back up. So I do have a flying geese unit that's sort of in progress. So I can sort of explain to you what I'm doing. Basically, I do the colorful part of this unit first. I knit 2 of them. They're separate. I do it on DPNs because then you can use like 3. You don't have to put it on holders or anything. And then I knit the white part. And then there's a central decrease here. And then decreases at either side. So that's the gist of what I'm doing. that's the gist of the flying geese unit. And yeah, I think it's really fun. I'm really enjoying it. I would love to just knit this for the rest of the month. But I already told, my family that I would knit them things, so I suppose I should do that. So I've kind of got like one on the go, but yeah, I'm trying to finish these socks for my uncle and then also rotate in there this sweater that I started for my mom like a month ago that I haven't really been able to work on very much. And yeah. And it's not for the faint of heart for people who do not like to weave in ends, because there are ends on these blocks. I thought I was gonna after I finish a block, weave in the ends, but that hasn't happened yet. So here we are. And so that's my Advent mini project that I am really excited about. And I also have like some other mini skeins from Kalia the Luddite, who did the colors that I used for my Slipstravaganza shawl. I did buy some mini skein packages from her, which is on this same kind of almost sport weight kind of base. So I do plan to mix those in here as well at some point. Yeah, because I when I make quilts, I like scrappy projects, which means like lots of different fabrics, and then you only end up using like a little bit of each one. So I mean, I don't have a plan for how big this blanket is going to be. I do like that it makes a sizable square. Like this is I think it's like 9.5 inches, which makes for something so that I don't have to make like 100 of something to fit into the blanket. And by working on basically like making a block at a time, it's fun, and you're not doing the same thing for a lot, right? You make 4 flying geese units, and then you do some little corner bits, which doesn't take that long. This takes a bit longer, and then you only have 3 seams to sew, and you're done. And I tried out doing mattress stitch. Yeah, I think this one has mattress stitch right here. A mattress stitching them together, which of course looks nice, but then it's not very flexible, and I would prefer to have the blocks, be a little bit more stretchy. So I'm actually like, the simplest answer is the best answer, and I'm just whip stitching them together, so that works pretty well. Let me see, this would be one that was whip stitched. And you can see it stretches quite nicely. It doesn't give you like a really firm line. You don't have like a big gross seam on the back. So that's what a lot of crochet patterns call for. And like, it's funny how when I've done crochet blankets before, like I can't just whip stitch. That's too easy, I guess. It's got to be more complicated, but in my mind, simple is easy. And there's probably a way to do this sort of thing completely without any seaming, but I think in Kate Davies' patterns, in the description it talks about how she has you pick up stitches and then do a 3 needle bind off to connect all of the squares, which you end up with sort of a seam everywhere, which it's sort of, I mean, I guess look in the pictures of her pattern. I just didn't like the look of that personally. And I don't mind like doing a little bit of seaming. It really doesn't take that long. And also my blocks are not as large as hers. So, yeah. Whip stitch works just as well. It's easy enough to match up the points that need to match, and then just, it's easy to ease it in. So that's my Advent project. What size needle am I working on? These are more like, fat, plumper fingerings, almost to sport, that I'm using in this. So I am using a 3.25 millimeter needle, and these are, bamboo, probably clover, DPNs that I've had forever, which, yeah, there's nothing wrong with them. Okay, this one actually tells me, has the needle size on here. Does it tell me US size? US 3. So I'm using a US 3 or a 3.25 millimeter needle. Yeah. And where I live in Alberta has just gone into an actual lockdown. This is kind of our first official lockdown for the province. Our premier, like, I think early on, you know, cities sort of shut everything down, but the province itself didn't necessarily, I don't think they called for a lockdown. And now we're at the point where the Premier has asked the Government of Canada and the Canadian Red Cross for funding for field hospitals to deal with the raging cases of COVID that we have going on. So I think he had no other choice. They sort of instituted like a pseudo lockdown like 3 weeks ago. And that it's still been like really busy whenever I go out. So clearly and like there's tons of people walking in neighborhoods and hanging out together and at the toboggan hill. So they have like real lockdown regulations that they just announced yesterday. So where was I going with this? So, I mean, not that have plans to be going out into the world anyway. We were just, I mean, my brother's not coming home for Christmas. He lives in Montreal. And so we'll be having like a virtual Christmas with him anyway. My mom just ordered a turkey, which we'll have to go pick up at some point before Christmas. And I mean, it's an at-home Christmas. My mom has gotten really into pottery, really into it. And so the big Christmas present this year is getting a kiln, which is supposed to arrive, I guess, mid-December, I suppose, in time for Christmas. So that's sort of the family Christmas present. Other than that, like, I opened this mug yesterday that my mom had ordered from somewhere, and she was like, at the end of the day, I was like, how many mugs did you order? Because she was talking about a couple other ones that we have to pick up somewhere, and she was like, oh, well, it's your Christmas present. Merry Christmas. And I was like, what? So, Christmas might just be like us shopping for ourselves in the name of Christmas and then, you know, using stuff when it arrives. We did order, you know, everybody gets a pair of pajamas, that are coming in the mail. We bought my dad some slippers, which he already has. My mom got some slippers. So, yeah. Christmas is either you could consider it like Christmas is canceled or like extended, so it's like Christmas month. I don't know. Who needs rules this year for Christmas, right? Anyway, so I had what did I have? I think there were like 4 or 5 people who commented that they do actually like the books, me talking about books. So I'll try not to, like, if I don't have, I don't know, a lot to say, I won't try and stretch it. How about that? I'll just sort of talk briefly about books. And what I'm reading right now, I'm really loving. This is the new Lindy West book, which is called Shit Actually, which is her rewatching of older movies, and then older movies that were like big blockbuster hits, and then like looking at them through a more modern lens and evaluating them. And it is freaking hilarious. I am reading it before I go to bed, and I'm worried that I'm like waking my parents up by laughing so hard. I'm about a little bit more than halfway through, and yeah. I mean, the titles kind of give you a sense. The titles of the chapters. Shit Actually is her title for her review of the movie Love Actually. The first chapter is The Fugitive is the only good movie, and so then she goes and rates every other movie based on like how many copies of the Fugitive it ranks. And like the chapter for Forrest Gump is like, dude, you gotta stop listening to your mom. For Harry Potter is Harry Plot Hole. Back to the Future Part 2. Time travel doesn't make sense, and I think we should make it illegal. And they're really funny. If you enjoy her humor, of course. And don't mind having things that you like kind of ripped apart, which, I mean, I don't mind that. Yeah, it's really freaking funny. I have it out of the library. I think it's due today or tomorrow, probably today, and I've got to finish reading it, which I will do. And yeah, I think that's about everything that I have to talk about this week. Yes. Look out for more Vlogmas videos, because I guess I don't have anything better to do. Oh, school term is almost over. My last assignment is due on Friday, and then I will be free. My friends in Montreal and I are going to be doing a virtual cookie baking on the weekend, which is something I really miss from when I lived there. My friend Amanda would have us all over, and we would all make cookies together and then do like a cookie exchange. And yeah, that was like the best thing that I ever used to do in the lead up to Christmas. I definitely need a bangs trim, which is why I keep playing with them. My mom gave me a bit of a home haircut today, but she got tired by the time it was time to trim my bangs, so I'm going to make my dad do it when he gets home. He's my usual bang trimming guy anyway. The pandemic is not the only reason that I have home haircuts. I was doing home haircuts before the pandemic. Not that that makes me cool or anything. It just means that I haven't found a hairdresser that I like here in Edmonton, and I can't bring myself to spend like $70 just for a haircut. That just, yeah, it's too much in my mind. Yeah, anyway. Thanks for sticking with me this far. I appreciate everybody who watches my little videos, and leave me a comment of like what you're looking forward to for this next little while. I mean, I think we're all Christmasing at home this year, unless you're lucky to be in a place that is getting vaccines, or also doesn't have a large number of cases, so you can do regular things. That would be enjoy that, because you could be here and getting field hospitals. So yeah, stay safe, stay sane, and I'll see you next time.